Hello and welcome to Business News. I am Frank Omalape and here are some of the reports we're filing now. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries has reduced its growth forecast for global oil demand in 2021. OPEC in its latest report said the global demand for crude oil in the current year is expected to further increase by an average of 5.8 million barrels per day, as opposed to the initial forecast of a growth of 5.96 million barrels per day as suggested by OPEC experts. This disclosure is contained in OPEC's monthly report, which was published on Wednesday in Vienna, in which it came up with the assumption that 99.82 million barrels of crude oil per day would be required globally in the fourth quarter. However, OPEC experts have opined that stronger demand is not expected again until the last month of the year, pointing to the petrochemical industry and higher demand for heating oil. Away from there now, an expert in building and construction, Adelaide Adekombi, has asked the federal government to consider domestic professional builders more in its infrastructure projects so as to encourage local content policy and promote growth in the sector. Adelaide Adekombi was reacting to the budget allocation for infrastructure and project in the 2022 budget. According to Adekombi, the budget will have no significant impact on the building and construction sector, except it will reflect local participation in awards for projects. Adekombi was speaking on iBrandTV flagship program Business Breakfast.
Where we have a fear is that we're still not getting it right. When we put such advantage into any nation, and then we don't believe in our professionals. We tend to give those contracts out to those who take the money out of the nation. So how the impacts become difficult for those who are practicing here. I guess that the way out, we should encourage our professionals. If our professionals, if you see where the nation is going, when we have that kind of laudable budget, you will find out that most of the construction is being carried out by their own professionals. Even if we decide to bring the expert, we attach them. It's a big challenge. It's not for Nigerian Institute of Building. It's a general challenge for the construction industry in Nigeria. We've not been having the professionals who are being trained to do this job are not having access to this job. And all we do, we bring somebody who is not even qualified from outside. Nigeria is a very good country when it comes to putting policy on ground, but implementation of policy is the problem. We have something, I think it's under the Presidential Order 5 or something. There is a local content law that says that if you take up a project, a so percentage of your workers must be the indigenous people. So bringing an expert from outside to work, they will have a lead to local content laws. The 80% of your workforce has to be in Nigeria.
But away from there now, the federal government says the country will need 350 trillion naira to execute its medium-term national development plan between 2021 and 2025. This was disclosed by the Minister of State for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Claire Magba, at a media briefing ahead of the 27th Nigerian Economic Summit built to commence on October 25. According to Agba, 300 trillion naira is expected to be generated from the private sector, while the remaining 50 trillion naira will be sourced from the government. He further explained that the government is collaborating with the organized private sector to build infrastructure and allow for tax waivers to the private sector for their contributions. And in the meantime, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has warned that the government needs to adjust spending following the debt load surge last year amid the pandemic. The director of the IMF's Fiscal Affairs Department, Victor Gaspar, stated this in a blog post about the Monetary Fund Fiscal Monitor report released yesterday. According to Gaspar, global debt in 2020, including public and private borrowing, jumped by 14% to a record high of $226 trillion while public debt amount to $88 trillion, close to 100% of GDP, which is also expected to decline only gradually. He, however, urged countries on the need to calibrate fiscal policies to suit their own unique circumstances. Gaspar also called on the international community to provide more critical support to alleviate fiscal vulnerabilities in lower-income countries. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has issued guidelines for the disposal of non-permissible income for non-interest financial institutions. This was released in a circular yesterday and addressed to all non-interest financial institutions and signed by the Director of Financial Policy and Regulation Department, Chibuzo Efobi. According to the circular, the guidelines partly state that non-permissible income is not an object of ownership of the non-interest banks and does not confer any ownership right on it. Also, the non-permissible income shall be put in a dedicated account and shall not be mixed with the funds of the NIB.